Hello, my name is Jeff Atchison, and I'm the Chief Business Development Officer here at IFP. Welcome to another episode of How to Grow your presence, your practice, and your performance based upon whatever your success metrics happen to be. Today we're going to focus on annuities, and particularly fixed and variable annuities from that point. And I have Richmond with me here today, who heads up as the director of our annuity division. And welcome to the episode of How to Grow, Rich.
Thank you, sir. I've been waiting to be the one of the guests, so good. Let's rock it.
Well, today we're going to kind of give you a broad overview of what we've got going on in the annuity division, and again, specifically variable and fixed index. Now, that doesn't mean we don't welcome and we want to pursue traditional fixed business, which would be MIGAs or what are multi-year guarantee contracts, or just traditional long-term fixed. But that would come through Jane Alford in the IFP Insurance Group. And Jane will be a co-host on a future episode of How to Grow when we focus more on what runs through the insurance group, and both in terms of annuities, life insurance, and long-term care. So Rich, let's kind of start out a little bit, and I've got some notes here just to kind of informal visiting, but let's talk a little bit about annuities. In general, our inventory of annuities. How many annuity carriers are we working with, and how does an advisor even know what's in the inventory?
Right. So we have, we work with roughly 30 different carriers, and their whole, just for the FIA and the VA, in the VA space. So we have contracts with everyone, and all the underlying products. We have several ways to research that we can find them, and that would be some of the tools that we utilize on AdvisorX. AdvisorX is one of our portals that everyone should be familiar with, and that's where we're driving all the information from. We have some tools. Should I go ahead and talk about the tools?
Yeah, but let me ask you one question.
Yeah.
You bring up a good point. So do we have every product of every company, or is there an approval process, or how does that work?
There is an approval process, and all of these carriers have gone through that with our due diligence team. They vet the product. They make sure that the carriers are of good rating. They're making sure that the carriers meet our standards and our E&O standards. So that's the big key to the whole thing is that they can make our E&O standard, and then that it's a worthy product to be on our platform.
Because I think another point to tie into this is wholesalers call on you and they extol the virtues of their latest and greatest product, whatever it happens to be. Don't assume that we've already seen it or approved it here in the home office. Every product's got to go through this vetting process. And frankly, from a FINRA perspective, they also just don't want this big closet full of every product known to man, particularly if nobody is selling a particular product or there's not demand for it. But I think as Rich is going to kind of touch on, first stop, Rich, I would assume to know what we have, we're going to get into due diligence works.
Correct. Yeah, that's one of our tools. And again, that's lives in the AdvisorX portal. And due diligence works will take us through the approved products, the riders that are attached. If you want the rider, you don't want a rider, you want a VA, you can pretty much size up the universe of products that we've run through our due diligence committee. And we update that. Emily Pelko updates that as soon as there's a change in a product, or a product is no longer there, or a rider's been removed. She works with that company to make sure that our database is up to date.
Now, Due Diligence Works is an app within AdvisorX?
It is. You go into the app portal. If you don't have Due Diligence Works, let us know. We could have our IT team turn it on. And it's in the app portal in the due diligence. So if you get your little 9 dots up there, you click on it, you should have it installed already. It's a single sign-on, and it's ready to go.
If I remember right, it just says DDW too. If they're looking for
yes,
Due
sir.
Diligence Works, it's really DDW.
When you're looking in the app. Yes.
Now, we've got another app within AdvisorX, and that would be what?
Annuity Rate Watch. And again, that one's going to show ARW. An Annuity Rate Watch it will be more granular than the Due Diligence Works. It'll get us to be able to actually drill down and look at rates and look at, you could do side-by-side comparisons by carrier. You can look at the different riders. the different states, what state, it runs searches, so it's much more granular. We do have some training, again, in Advisor X under the knowledge base post, and it's there for all of our systems that we have. And we're trying to keep that up to date because we're always expanding the knowledge base.
Okay, good. So what kind of trends are we seeing, both in terms of inquiries, but also even at the industry level? Because I know there was a private letter ruling back in
Right.
2019 that kind of changed the landscape a little bit. Can you talk to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So in 2019, when the private letter ruling came out, it would allow fees to be deducted from the advisory type annuity without it being called a distribution, whether it's, if it's a qualified or non-qualified. And so you won't have to pay taxes on that fee. And the client won't get charged anything on the as a distribution and mess up their riders. So all the insurance carriers went back to the drawing board, and they're coming up with new product. And the index field, as well as the VA. Index is trail in the VA space, but those RIA specific type annuities I think are going to really expand the industry, and we have a couple of the top carriers that are really leading the way on that, not only with the private letter ruling, but also with product and features to be able to pull that from the product.
So I think there's a real opportunity here, particularly when you're out seeing clients or running across clients that may have some older, bluntly antiquated product designs, and with the new fee-based annuities, they have stripped out a lot of the heavy costs that were attributable to the commission-based products. And with the insurance carriers, Keith Kessel and Lisa Robinson here, work closely with Rich and I to be able to adjust our ADV and to have it be congruent with our overall billing system. So we got to the point that we got comfortable with approving the insurance company to actually do the calculation, the fee deduction, and they pretty much push the revenue to us rather than us having to do all the work here and pull it from that particular contract. But as Rich mentioned, the real critical factor was the ability to pull the fee from the annuity without it being treated as a taxable distribution or hurt the benefit in any way. But there's still rules, there's still restrictions, there's still requirements. And if you got any questions on that, again, Rich, I think as always, you're the concierge to kind of go through and point them in the right direction of who not only the top carriers and products happen to be, but what else process and procedure they need to be aware of from there.
Exactly, and that's really that's where I really come in, is to be able to say, okay, here's the whole deal, here it is, and I could also connect them with their external wholesalers, and we work together really well with the wholesaler. And we also have some other tools that we could use in IMOs that we use, FIG and Partners Advantage. So, and FIG is I never remember their FIG part. It's like the DWW, the Financial Independence Group is FIG. So, so we also have them as a partner and a tool, but that's where we really can offer a lot more for the advisors.
So to kind of talk to that a little bit, we have certain things that we have direct contracts with the insurance carriers. There's other situations where it was better for us to work through an IMO, meaning independent marketing organization. They might have access to a product we couldn't get to directly, or a different version of a product, or otherwise tools and resources. But as Rich mentioned, he's a great point of access as a concierge to say, when do we need to go directly to the wholesaler with that particular company or product you're looking for?
Exactly.
When should we reach out to the IMO and their personnel, particularly if you're not really zoned in on one product, you're trying to look at two or three and figure out which is the best way to go.
Exactly.
That would be correct from there?
I would agree with that. Absolutely.
So let's take this a step further, Rich. Let's talk about where the rubber hits the road a little bit. And I know we've kind of worked and reworked our system going forward, but let's kind of talk about the submission process.
Okay.
What are some critical things to know, and what are some critical things to avoid when, okay, it's time to take the app?
Okay, so the biggest and the most critical thing is to be able to open up an IF2 account for regular brokerage type annuities, commissionable annuities, or if you're going to do advisory, that would be IF4. that is the key to everything with the annuities. What that's going to let you do, because we have some carriers that are not yet in the system, and we have most of them are. So the ones that are in, you still need the IF2, IF4, but that's going to allow all that information to be pulled into the carrier's apps and carrier forms, so that you don't have to enter it by hand. It's all going to come straight in from the new account form that you set up in IF2. It'll pull through into the subscribe system for the order submission. When we get to that point, then it's just a matter of re-uploading those forms back into the system once the client is signed. The other key would be the IFP suitability form and disclosure form for the annuities. We used to have that in the system, but it was so big that it was timing out the system. So we had to move that out and put it on, again, Advisor X. And it's under Forms and Documents. It's all the way at the bottom on the left. But that form is necessary to be put into the system. And it's, like I said, it's been relocated from Subscribe onto Advisor X, and that's where we have to pull it from. So those are the two main key pieces of that. If they're going to use something that's not in the system, we have some carriers that have not yet fully been integrated in the system, then they have to the financial professional has to do a paper app. And there's a whole nother process for that, and that's also in knowledge base. And again, that also still requires the IF2 or IF4 account. So those are the big things that happen on errors and delays, is that if you don't do that process, it's going to delay your annuities submission.
And when we say the system, we're really talking about the Pershing Subscribe system.
That's the Subscribe system is what I'm referring to.
Right, and so the key to the Subscribe system being an order entry system from an electronic standpoint, but it's also, there's back-end benefits, because when an annuity contract is in the system, it ties into Extiva and it allows for the processing of commissions to come through quicker from that point in time, where if it's not in the system, there's still that manual find it, credit it, and get it into Extiva.
Exactly. Right? And if you're doing a paper app or one of the products that aren't in there, we have to go back in, or someone in your office has to go back in and network that paper app or that IF2 account to that carrier. The carriers are in there to be networked. We have some that are not, and we're working on getting that fixed, but we need to make sure we get those networked in. That's key for the getting paid and trails and everything else.
Right.
Books and records.
And then when someone, if they do an application through one of our outside partners, the IMO being either Partners Advantage or FIG from there, that still comes back, I think, to what you were saying, is we can do it all in a paper app submission, but it still has to come here first for compliance review, and it's done manually, correct?
That's absolutely correct. And again, it's the same paper app submission in knowledge base. If you can't find it in knowledge base, you can always contact me. Again, that's where I'm here for, is to make sure I'm giving you the information to process these annuities more smoothly. They're already a complex product, so we want to make sure that we make the process work for you.
Yeah, because one of the things when we moved over from our previous life, if you will, we brought along some 3,000 annuity contracts, and we've spent the last year trying to get everything up and running in the system properly. We're about there. Things are running much smoother than they used to be. But going forward, we think this will really be a streamlined process if we can get everybody on the same page from there. So kind of in closing, Rich, I appreciate you coming on in and co-hosting with me today. And again, Rich has been tremendous in running stuff down, educating people, getting them pointed in the right direction, acting as a concierge. So as you look to amp up your annuity business, whether it's in the traditional commissionable type product, whether variable or fixed index, he's the man. And then also do some digging on some of these new fee-based contracts that are coming out. To me, there's probably is the exciting part of the annuity world, and we'll be having some future How to Grow episodes with some very specific partners of IFP that are in that space to dig in a little bit deeper onto what they offer from there. So again, thanks for visiting with us in this episode of How to Grow, and hopefully we gave you some ideas, again, how to enhance your presence, your practice, and your performance going forward.